Guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Ty with Opinionated Grind. I'm back again today with yet another video. And guys, stay tuned for this one. I got a really good subject I want to talk about today. I think it's vitally important when it comes to the job market in 2026 and why it's so damn hard for people to find a job. Trust me guys, there's a reason behind this. There's a method to the madness. And if you don't know by now, you're going to find out after today's video why this is so, hard, as I stated, guys, to try to find a job, okay? Now, I want to start off by saying right off the bat, excuse me, guys, it's not anything that you're doing wrong, I'm doing wrong, anybody else is doing wrong. I have to say that because I know some people say, man, I can't find a job. Is this a bias type of thing? You ask these questions, guys, you're like, am I doing something wrong? Is my resume incorrect? Like, what's really going on? Because I feel like the job should be for me, right? I have the skills, I have the knowledge, I have the experience, I have years and years of training. And for some reason, I can't seem to land this job, okay? There is a reason behind that, guys, and I want to share with you today. So make sure that you stay tuned right here, man. Keep it locked because you don't want to miss this information, all right? But if you guys are not aware, just know this. According to this information I'm pulling from today, guys, this is from HRDive.com. Once again, everybody, HRDive.com. Feel free to go on the website, look up the information for yourself. But again, this is where I'm going to be pulling all this information from today. So 1 in 3 companies are already stating that they're going to be implementing AI into the hiring process for 2026. Once again, guys, 1 in 3 companies have already stated they're going to be implementing AI into the entire hiring process for 2026. Okay? So you guys know AI is turning into a big deal, okay? A lot of companies are, like as I stated, is implementing this into their hiring process. AI is going to be not only, helping in the hiring process side, but AI also is laying folks off, okay? That's just the bottom line. That's the God's honest truth. And that's the reality that we're living in. So basically what you have to do now, guys, you have to make sure that your skill set is top notch. And not only just your skill set, but you want to make sure that you stand out from everybody else. Remember, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people that's putting in for the same exact jobs at the same exact companies that you're putting in for. Okay? It's not just you. All right? Prime example. As I stated earlier, guys, you might have years of experience. You may have, all of this training under your belt. Okay? You feel like you're qualified, overqualified, whatever the case may be. And you may say, man, I put in for X amount of jobs, and between these X amount of jobs, I put, over 100 resumes in. Okay? So, 100 resumes combined. That's 100 resumes just from you. That's excluding everybody else that did the same thing. So when you start throwing all these numbers out there, guys, we're talking about you put in 100 resumes. Your neighbor across the street, he put in 100 resumes. The girl that live around the block, she put in 100 resumes. You follow what I'm saying, guys? So we're talking about, that's just 3 people. That's 300 resumes between 3 individuals. And not to mention everybody else that's doing the exact same thing. So now we're talking about thousands upon thousands of resumes that these companies have to sift through. If you guys remember back in the day, 2005, I'm just throwing out random years, guys. 1995, 1998, 2005, 2008, 2010, 2012, on and on and on. Back in those days, 80s, 70s, all through the decades, okay? Those eras are gone, right? Those years have passed us by. The hiring process has changed dramatically since those years. Now, you know, the job market was obviously completely different back in those days, but if you put in a resume somewhere, you had a much better chance of getting hired because, you know, maybe it wasn't a lot of people putting in for that job at that particular time. So, but my point is, back in those days, companies use a different process. They use a more, I like to say, pen and paper process, okay? We didn't have the implementation of AI. We didn't have all this advanced software that helps companies out when it comes to this process. So back then, they had to literally go resume by resume by resume, okay? Now, with them going resume by resume, there was a human person. Think about this, guys. There was a human being behind that entire process. But the process was painstakingly slow, okay? It took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. It took probably additional resources back then. You know, old school phone calls. You know, they looked at each resume and they said, hey, you know, John here, for example, he's qualified. Susie, she's qualified. Mark, he's qualified, so on and so forth, okay? They would then have to call you in for an interview once they kind of decide, like, okay, who they feel is more qualified to take the position. You follow what I'm saying, guys? And then, you know, the rest is history. You know, then they got to pick who interviewed the best, and then, you know, they go from there. But you guys follow what I'm saying. You know, back in the day, companies was able to handle that load because that's all they had. They had literally real human beings that had to look at every single resume, and then they had to kind of make a decision off of that. Now, times have changed, everybody. You know, we now have the implementation of AI. So what AI is able to do, it can take those 300 plus resumes, those 1,000 plus resumes, okay? And it really all depends on how sophisticated the software is, but at the same time, it can now do the work that human beings took longer to do, okay? So with AI, it might can go through 1,000 resumes within a drop of a dime. You see what I'm saying, guys? Again, like I just mentioned, we're talking about how sophisticated software is, because maybe it's so smart to the point where maybe that same software can also weed the resumes out and say, hey, these are bad, put these to the side. The ones that's good, this is what we're going to keep. You follow what I'm saying, guys? But at the end of the day, you know, this is the process that a lot of companies are using. And then once, you know, they use the software to weed out the bad ones, keep the good ones. And now it took that 1,000 resumes, let's say, for example, now it's down to, let's say, I don't know, guys, 100 resumes. Now the companies have a lot less resumes that they can sift through. Now you can use a real human being and actually, you know, make your decision from that point. Okay, guys. So I hope I'm not all over the place. Just like I said, guys, stay with me, follow me, man. And, you know, we're going to definitely go over some information to, you know, back up what I'm saying. All right, man. So let's jump right into this, man, because I've already been talking for a while and I don't want to, you know, go on and on and on, man. I want to get through this information so you guys can see what I'm saying. All right, let's jump right into this. And let's go. All right, man. So it says, guys, 1 in 3 companies say AI will run their hiring process in 2026, as I just stated. But more than half of the companies surveyed by resume.org expressed concerns about AI screening out qualified candidates or introducing bias. All right, let's try to get this thing to scroll and let's go. A third of U.S. workers with knowledge of their company's hiring practices believe artificial intelligence tools will likely run their entire hiring process by 2026. And that's according to an August 19th report from resume.org. In fact, 57% of companies already use AI in hiring, and 74% said it has improved the quality of their hires, the report found. However, more than half expressed concerns about AI screening out qualified candidates, introducing bias, or lacking human oversight. Companies should be open with candidates about AI's role in hiring to build trust, improve the candidate experience, and meet evolving compliance standards, Kara Dennison, head of career advising for resume.org, said in a statement. Furthermore, everybody, this means clearly explaining where and how AI is used, whether it makes recommendations or rejections, the level of human oversight, what data is collected, Dennison added. This proactive approach promotes fairness, prepares candidates, and demonstrates a commitment to ethical, effective hiring practices. Furthermore, everybody, in a survey of nearly 1,400 full-time workers, 74% said their company plans to increase AI use during the hiring process over the next 12 months. Already, these companies most commonly use AI in hiring for resume reviews, candidate assessments, candidate communication, and onboarding. Let's see, guys. So furthermore, among the 34% of companies that use AI for interviews, half allow it to conduct interviews directly. That's interesting. Employers also deploy AI tools to analyze candidate language, access tone, and even collect facial recognition data. While 71% retain human oversight, others say it depends or allow AI to run, the process independently. All right, everybody. So that's pretty much it, guys, in a nutshell. With the implementation of AI, as I mentioned, guys, we had all of the data that I just read to back up everything that I said. But this is the reality, man. We're in 2026. When you put resumes in, when you guys are filling out applications and you wonder why you're not getting callbacks, this is the reason why. And according to this information, it actually expounded upon, I should say, what I just mentioned as far as that same hiring process. Now, companies using AI to even conduct interviews, okay, which is something brand spanking new, okay? Because again, what it does is it takes out human intervention. You see what I'm saying, guys? They have the software to take place of the recruiter, and they're allowing the software to now conduct the interviews. They're allowing the software to now be able to, utilize itself and make its own decisions based off information that it sees. But I can also understand the concern behind that, because you think about it, you say, well, again, depending on how this AI software is structured, it could be biased, unbeknownst to itself. But the AI software could be biased enough to be like, you know what? It's getting rid of, let's say, well-qualified candidates, and it's picking the wrong people for the position, okay? But that's where the human touch and intervention needs to come back into play, because at the end of the day, when you have a real, actual human being looking at your information, human beings are able to make, for the most part, more rational decisions, okay? So at the end of the day, guys, I think AI, I think it's needed. I don't know if this AI thing is going to, or I should say at least the AI bubble is going to burst. And you guys know what I'm talking about, as far as companies putting all their eggs into this one AI basket and this thing bursting and exploding. And then, we're right back to square one, how things, in my personal opinion, should have stayed and been the entire time. Okay, keep human intervention, keep things the way that they were. Why? Because it worked. But a lot of companies now, guys, they're looking at efficiency. Okay, they're looking at the workload, they're looking at different aspects of the business and the job, and they're like, hey, what can we use, what can we implement to make our jobs, to make the entire process easier for the company? okay? And I think that's what they're doing. So, again, man, I know this was, kind of a long one, guys. A lot of information was said, a lot of information was read, but this is the reason why, people are not getting callbacks. I mean, like I said, the AI is going to be pretty much taking the workload off of these companies and these recruiters. And, there's a possibility that, your resume could get skipped. I mean, it could get missed, and again, we introduce that bias situation back into it because, again, we don't know the structure of the AI software and its limitations, meaning like what it's allowed to do versus what it's allowed not to do. You see what I'm saying, guys? But at the end of the day, I think we have a long way to go. But this is what the companies are doing, okay? And I think it's vitally important that people understand this during the entire hiring process. But I'll say this last thing, guys. I think, you have to keep your skills sharp. You have to stand out from the crowd. I mean, you have to have in my opinion, guys, you have to have a top-notch resume, top-notch skill set. If you gotta go back to school to learn a new skill, a new trade, do whatever it is that you have where you're taking that skill set and you're applying it to that entrepreneurship. And then that way, you should be good to go. All right. So drop a like down below, comment, share the video, and make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button. Very important. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you in the next one. All right. Peace.